just hop online and download just about any
emulator or game
for free.
Yeah, but that's totally illegal.
Is it? I don't know.
See? He does illegal things with no remorse.
Frittata!
You know what's the funniest thing about the Nintendo Switch 2 is how it's the most criticized product you can see online, but also the most pre-ordered one. That's because a lot of people online that tell you this and that about the Switch don't actually mean it. But you know who does? Me. That's why you guys got me to 80k subs. And that's why you will help me get to 100k, so I can face reveal with my silver play button. Instead of pre-ordering Nintendo Switch 2s, you should be pre-ordering Frittata's lawn service and telling me exactly when and where you would like me to mow your lawn. So do me a favor, hit that subscribe button. Let's see if it's actually possible to get such a mid-channel like mine to 100k. Give me a reason to tell my family they were wrong. And what's more is it's a Mexican family, so it will be the loudest argument ever registered on the decibel scale. Te dije que lo iba a hacer. Te dije, ma. Sí, pero no tienes un millón. ¿Qué te importa? No eres nada. ¿Cómo te crees la gran cosa? Yeah, bro, mom's right, dude. You ain't nothing. 100k subs. I could do that. Y ahora ponte a cortar el zacate, si no te doy una buena. Bien dada te la voy a dar.
emotional damage.
Telling you, one day we're gonna be featured on Dr. Phil. Anyways, if you don't speak taco, ask Google to translate that joke for you. When it comes to Nintendo, you know, there's not a single poor business decision they can make that will ever affect their success. Then again, Nintendo's not the only company who's reached this level of guaranteed success either. Several companies have been attaching more strings to their products by the year, and in spite of that, people still say, yes, buy now, think about the consequences later, complain about the consequences later, even though I'm one of the people that bought into this and made gaming a worse hobby. If that doesn't sum up the Nintendo fan base for you, well, don't expect me to drop any more IQ points to make it easier to understand. I've already eliminated enough brain cells with the nitrous. I need to save my remaining ones to make some content. Here is the thing about the Nintendo fan base though, is they're all in agreement that they don't like what Nintendo is doing. I mean, that doesn't change the fact that they all locked in their pre-orders, but I mean, at least they're very vocal. I mean, yeah, it makes their rants pointless and meaningless, but it's better than nothing, because the Nintendrones are on a whole other level. They are Nintendo fanboys who actually praise Nintendo for every poor anti-consumer business decision they make, and they cheer them on, asking for Nintendo to take away even more consumer rights.
If you try to mod your Switch 2 to illegally download Switch 2 games and Nintendo breaks your system, you deserve it. Stealing is not cool. It's not just Nintendo you're stealing from. It's also the third-party dev studios not getting paid for their hard work. I'll always be on the side of game developers being able to feed their families. Let's be real. Most people mod their consoles to bootleg games. Hopefully as technology continues to improve, this will be harder to do. I remember in college, everyone was illegally copying Dreamcast games, and this very well contributed to the downfall of a great system.
You make me want a lobotomy.
Oh, I got one too.
You can tell this guy has self-lobotomized himself with a Wii nunchuck. He made sure to really stick that thing in there and scrape all that brain matter and human functions out of himself. Because in order to shill that hard for Nintendo, you must drop your humanity itself. It's one thing if Nintendo wants to cancel your Nintendo account permanently because you didn't follow their rules or whatnot, but to outright brick someone's entire system, that is an unprecedented level of control over purchased products. No matter how you see it, that should not be allowed. But could you imagine if Windows made it so that if you downloaded ROMs, all of a sudden it bricks your entire computer and you're never allowed to use it again? Who in their right mind could actually advocate for this? Everything that Nintendo's not allowing you to do, you can do on your Steam Deck and Valve will not brick your handheld. This isn't something I have to concern myself with any single computer device I own, except for the Switch 2. So if I want to insert customized SIM cards that have a bunch of games installed on it, or I don't like any of the very bland themes Nintendo's finally releasing for this device and want my own, that can end in my Switch never functioning again. Hell, you could go get one of those modded HDMI TV streaming devices that are hacked with thousands of TV shows and movies on it plug that sucker right into your smart TV and not worry about Samsung or Sony or Vizio bricking your TV because you did so. I don't know a single actual Nintendo YouTuber who would agree with this guy, because accounts like this usually don't even really play on Nintendo or are Nintendo fans. They just grift for Nintendo online for likes and clicks and engagement. Actual Nintendo fans definitely do not agree with the idea of letting Nintendo brick their systems. Now, if only they didn't buy the console, that would mean something, but that's a different discussion. See, in the world of hardware, Valve and Gabe Newell are like Steve Wozniak's Apple, and Nintendo is Steve Jobs' Apple. One believes in allowing you to be a fully modular open system. The other believes in an enclosed system that the consumer should not be allowed to tamper with. And that right there is the immediate difference between actual ownership and fake ownership. I can see the intrinsic value and consumer convenience, which is what, the Switch 2 is supposed to be. But what I don't understand is the harsh punishment for trying to get more out of what's already in place. Because people love to throw the word hacker around, because hacker can refer to several things, like someone hacking a game and cheating, but likewise somebody using a custom sim to try and boot a special unique tool into their Switch can also be considered a hacker. And the term is used negatively to refer to these people who, in my opinion, just have a basic consumer right to try and do what they want with their system that they purchased. And if people want to boot up their Nintendo Switch with more NES and Super Nintendo and GameCube games that they can get from an emulator, instead of waiting for Nintendo to take a million years to get even a quarter of the games up on their Nintendo Switch Online service, they should have every right to do so, and I don't consider that stealing. If you're not selling something, if something has been discontinued, hell, if it's not even an IP Nintendo owns, and especially if it's games from studios that don't even exist anymore, emulating said products on your device should not result in you getting your device bricked. It's pretty reasonable. Hell, the potential of the Switch 2 to capture the niche emulation market is there. Valve could render the Steam Deck irrelevant if they decided to let Nintendo Switch 2 be an open platform, but that's why the Steam Deck even exists, for those niche markets that like to do those things that Nintendo is very hostile towards. To side with Nintendo on this is to side with the devil themselves. And that's because these Nintendo fanboys hate PC gamers. They hate that we can emulate what they're hoping Nintendo charges them for one day. And that's why they advocate so hard for Nintendo to continue shutting down ROMs, emulator sites, fan projects. They really want this utopia in their mind where Nintendo controls everyone and everything and every facet of your gaming experience. These guys are not against corporate greed. They just advocate for one specific company to be the one to control it all, and for the consumers to have no rights whatsoever. It makes no sense. It was smart by Nintendo to lock Switch 2 and require a launch date update. This is obviously a security measure for the launch of Switch 2. It will definitely change with later shipments of units that will come ready to play out of the box. Exactly how is it good for early previews of this device to not exist because it's locked? As a consumer, shouldn't you want there to be more information on the stability of the device, on what games work and which ones don't, on the quality of the titles, on the quality of the user interface and experience, the controls, everything? Just find out when it comes out? I mean, most people will do that. They'll just wait and find out. But I can't see how ensuring there is no reviews before launch of this device is good for consumers. It's so blatantly obvious it's Nintendo trying to take as much control and have as much say as possible and reduce consumer feedback. Hell, they practically put it in their terms of service that you can't file a class action lawsuit against them. It's clear as day these measures are put in place more so to protect the company itself and less about protecting the consumers. And that's the funny thing about these Nintendo fanboys. That's what they love. They love Nintendo swinging their dicks around, showing how much power and control they have. They get their power fantasy through the corporation itself, because in their real lives, they have no control or power over even themselves. See, but that's what I love though, because these Nintendo fanboys, they love that Nintendo creates these closed off ecosystems with no consumer freedom. And they despise the opposite. They hate that Steam Deck users get all the freedom with nearly none of the restrictions. They don't think it's fair. They see Steam Deck users booting up GameCube games at a far wider selection than Nintendo can provide, and their reactions are hilarious. If you know Jake Randall, he's got a video up showcasing the Nintendo GameCube library running through EmuDeck, and his tweet set the entire Nintendo fandom ablaze. They were pissed. They hate that we can do this. The Nintendo GameCube library is the reason I own a Steam Deck. Pirate should be thrown in jail.
PC's killed your dad and raped your mom.
How dare you not adhere to Nintendo's rules, you asshole? How could you? How could you not just wait for Nintendo to take 50 years to make all previous Nintendo games available on their service? How dare you not be patient? How dare you go out of your way to nab more GameCube games than Nintendo could provide? You're supposed to play GameCube on Nintendo devices. You should go to jail. Oh, I'm drinking a beer to that one. Now I'm kind of regretting I didn't just outright shotgun that beer. These guys are insane. They really believe a corporation should be allowed to jail you because you're not doing what they say you should be doing and doing it on their time and on their dime. If Nintendo could have their own way, they would outright make it a fee every single time you booted up a game. Hell, they would charge you each time you booted up the console. It's clear that when this is something you advocate for, you're in love with the corporation and not gaming itself. Because real lovers of gaming would advocate for allowing users to emulate whatever the hell is not being sold or hasn't been available for years. As video game preservation is incredibly important, and it's not a moral argument, games just not being lost in time is overall better for the industry. There's many ideas that people can always go back to. There are many titles that are encouraged to make a comeback that we've forgotten about over the years, and it gives incentive and reason for people to purchase hardware that can emulate these experiences. There is a logical reason for this to exist, and companies like Nintendo outright trying to shut it down and you advocating for them to throw people in jail for doing it is quite literally dystopian. Assuming this is illegal?
But it's fun.
No, it's not illegal. Well, at least not yet. That all depends entirely on if you Nintendo guys purchase the Switch 2 and give Nintendo the money to make it illegal. What we are seeing in that tweet there is a great example of what it feels like to have freedom. I have no idea why anybody wants to bring up the law and their concerns about, are you breaking the law? Should you be able to do that? Bitch, I should be able to do whatever the fuck I want with games from a system that are over 20 years old at this point. Games, mind you, that are not available to purchase anymore.
What about the legality of it? What about the legality of it?
What about the bitches you don't have on your dick? Well, now you don't need it anymore, since GameCube is coming to the Switch.
Yes, bro! Oh my god. There's like, damn, okay, that's a great line.
Yeah, except one problem. Nintendo only allows you to rent these GameCube games instead of purchasing them. Like, if you want to rent them, that's fine. But if you have to actively be a member of Switch Online, and you're not even someone who plays games online, you're paying into a service that's in your way. You're probably the type that would rather buy a handful of GameCube games. And mind you, the selection is incredibly limited at launch. Nowhere near the amount of games we see this guy scrolling through on his Steam Deck. Not even close. Hell, even the interface is better for it. On top of that, this support isn't coming to the Switch 1. I need to clarify that for people. You have to buy the Switch 2 in order to have access to the GameCube games via Switch Online. Yeah, this is actually something I found out recently, and it's still blowing my mind. Apparently, there's supposedly a limitation to the Switch 1's capabilities that make it so, but I say that's all bullshit. Nintendo intentionally did that to make people want to buy a Switch 2. It has something to do with storage capacity and the Switch one not being powerful enough, but again, I still think that's all completely bullshit. If they can cram Cyberpunk into a Switch 2 cartridge, hell, if they can cram The Witcher 3 into a Switch 1 cartridge, they can get 20-year-old Dolphin games to run on this thing.
If you can dodge a wrench, you can dodge a ball. What?
But instead, they're saying go buy the brand new device where that will be available. Switch 1 owners, get fucked. Not only that, but the selection is very limited. So limited, in fact, you can't justify subbing to our service for it, but do it anyway. I still can't believe that this very small selection made Griffin Gaming jizz his own pants when he saw it live. Steam Deck would be useless without Nintendo emulators. It's so much inferior to the Switch 1, let alone the 2. This is how out of touch Nintendo guys are. They really think Nintendo games are the only thing Steam Deck users have access to. No, they got access to Xbox games, PlayStation games, Sega games, SNK games, Neo Geo, Commodore 64, DOS. Basically anything that has ever existed in the gaming world can be emulated on handheld PCs like the Steam Deck. I mean, just take a look at this other ignorant Nintendo fanboy. Typical Steam Deck user activity, to be honest. If it wasn't for Nintendo games, what would most of these people even be doing with that machine? See? What did they tell you? They know nothing outside of Nintendo. They really do believe Nintendo is the only gaming company on this planet. Not only that, but they don't seem to realize that PC games are just as popular, if not more, than Nintendo games. At its core, the Steam Deck is more oriented for playing PC games, but it can do just about every other game that has ever existed for any console. Without Nintendo, virtually nothing would change. You still have a much more impressive PS1 catalog and PS2 catalog, an Xbox catalog, Dreamcast catalog, Genesis catalog, Atari catalog, PSP, TurboGrafx 16, Master System, and Television, Atari Jaguar. My god, I'm not even close to the full list. It's hilarious that the only offense these Nintendo douchebags take is that you're playing Nintendo games on a not native Nintendo system. To them, that's heresy, that's a crime. You should be jailed. You shouldn't have the right to do that. Nintendo should make all the money and should only be allowed to rent you games and not sell them. And you should have less user freedom and less consumer rights and less access to games. That is the right way of doing things because it's legal. And therefore, what is legal is morally right. God, I can't think of a larger group of gamers who don't look out for themselves more than Nintendo guys. Just look at how jealous, spiteful, and envious they are at what Steam Deck users can do. And the jealousy and the envy doesn't come from them not being able to do what Steam Deck users do. It comes from the fact that Steam Deck users aren't giving Nintendo money. How dare they? How insane is that? How insane is it to be so prioritized with a gaming corporation that you never once think to yourself, you know what, screw this company, I'm gonna go do what they do. No, you think to yourself, let's make it illegal. Let's ruin everybody else's fun because Nintendo needs your money. Nintendo is my childhood. They built me. They raised me more than my parents. Give them money until you die. They hate Steam Deck users and owners like me because they are fanboys. They don't believe anybody should be able to have more fun and freedom than them. Because in their minds, Nintendo is the ultimate experience, the ultimate company. Their little pea-sized brains have never explored gaming further than the gaming console literally built for children. But then again, that's why they act like children. This is the fandom that Nintendo has nourished. They have trained their consumer base to be this loyal to them. They understand the immaturity of the average Nintendo owner. You have to forgive me for being a little more passionate about this video. It's just, I can't stand the Nintendo fanboys. These guys make everybody else's gaming experience their own business, to the point they outright want you jailed. But I'll tell you what, I'm gonna go do exactly what Randall did in his video, and I'm gonna download the entire GameCube library, so that way every single Nintendo fanboy that dislikes this video can piss their pants and fuck off. There's nothing you can do about it. Eat a dildo. Like, comment, share, and subscribe on the road to 100K. With that being said, I'll see you in the next video.
Free Congo sucks ass.